Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Lead Her podcast. Today, we have a wonderful guest, Georgia, aka GMC, as Joe likes to call her. I have met Georgia through Joe as she's been working with Joe for a couple of years now to really kind of grow her business, and it's been incredible to watch her growth over the last few years. Not just growth in your business, but you as a person. And a personal highlight was watching you speak at Joe's event a couple of weeks ago in front of hundreds of people at Old Trafford. She was the only woman to speak that day, and she absolutely smashed it. And each time I've met Georgia, I just love her energy. I love her positivity. I love her passion in helping women. And I just know you guys are going to absolutely love her as well. But also we've had quite similar backgrounds where we both have lived the party lifestyle. So I felt it'd be fun to talk about that today, and also how both our lives could have went one or two ways and how we kind of really became the women that we are today. So Georgia, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Are you okay to give everybody a little bit more info of who is Georgia? What do you do?
Yes, of course. So, Georgia, GMC, anything that you want to call me is absolutely fine. I am an online fitness and confidence coach, and my passion lies within empowering women to become the leader that they needed more of growing up, the woman that creates a lifestyle she can be proud of, and then we create the body as a byproduct of that. I'm very, very passionate about developing this life that gives you fire. My clients called animals because I believe every woman has an inner animal that has just been caged and caged and caged over the years, and she is just ready to pounce.
Yeah, love that. And like, let's just really just rewind right back to you before a coach, the good old days. So let's kind of maybe go before you were coaching, like how were you living your life? Because like I guess you weren't an animal back then, maybe a different kind of animal.
Yes, definitely. Depends how far you want to go back. I was definitely, as I was younger, I was very chatty, if you like. I was always called chatty, bossy, that kind of thing, full of character. And then I'd say when I got to uni, things started to change a little bit. Obviously, was living the party life at uni, did a season in Zante for the whole like 9 weeks or something, where I drank alcohol every single day bar one for 9 weeks. Got into a relationship, and my identity then started to shift. I feel like over time, I definitely from both parts had my identity stripped away and became more of a mouse, timid, that kind of thing. Worked a 9 to 5. I was selling CCTV and security, which, as you can imagine, was not a thrilling job. And I remember thinking, the big boss man used to come in, and I remember just thinking, why am I making you money when I'm miserable every single day? And I just remember thinking, I used to feel quite lazy because I didn't really want to do the job. I didn't want to work like that. And I was always like, oh, what's wrong? What's wrong? And then the weekend would come around, drinking, obviously, bottle of wine on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That Monday feeling would come along. And then it was only when I moved home to be a carer for my mum that things started to change slightly. And I think that was a big sort of pivot point in my life and when things started to change.
Mm. And when you were like working at the CTV, were you still at uni then, or were you finished uni then?
Just finished uni. At uni, I worked in pubs and clubs and summers actually. And summers was one of my
Oh
favorite
my
jobs.
God, you've lived it all. I love how.
Honestly, I don't know, it's very similar to coaching because you actually help a lot of women, and I loved it. Like, I honestly, I had people come in and tell me I'd changed their lives because of that job. And I think that's when that first feeling came about. But then it was after uni that I started the 9 to 5 boring CCTV job.
Yeah, and I love that you did a year in Zante as well, because me and my friend Ellis actually we went over to Magaluf with the goal to do that, but we couldn't find anywhere to stay, and it was literally like you'd be staying in a flat with like six people or something, and I was like, I don't think I could do that. And I think at the same time that was when I was just starting to like train and look after myself. So like going up, like when I booked that holiday, I wasn't there. And
Mm.
then I'd done like the training and eating a wee bit better and I was feeling good, and then away for a week partying to almost stay there for like 2 months or something, I think we were going to do. And also I was just starting to see Joe then, and I really liked him, and I was like, want to go home. But we couldn't find anywhere to stay anyway, so we went home. But my friend done the whole Zante thing, and then we were going to do it in Magaluf, and it just sounded amazing. And like sometimes you look back at those times and you think, oh my God, that was so bad. But it's also like a part of growing up and meeting new people, and you'll still learn so many amazing skills from doing stuff like that.
Oh yeah, it at that point I was starting to feel a bit unconfident in myself, but you had to almost, like you say, you have to go and get a job. So I had to just walk into a bar and be like, give me a job. And then even to get a commission while you were working in the bars, you had to just chat to people. You didn't know anyone. I didn't take a phone. And that's how old I am. I didn't take a phone with me. I had to go to an internet cafe to chat to my mum and dad on Facebook because I just didn't take a phone with me. So you had to go and speak to people and make friends. And I do think, like you say, I learned a lot of skills, if I can call them that, through that summer.
Yeah. And what did you study at uni?
Dance. I was a dance.
Dance. Oh, wow. So what was the goal? What did you want to do?
So I had no idea.
Okay.
I went to college because that's what school told me to do. I went to uni because that's what college told me to do and my parents told me to do. I've never, ever, ever been academic. I always used to hate exams, that kind of thing. It always really scared me. And I just danced for fun. So I just went, auditioned, um, almost without the thought of going to uni. I just was like, oh, I'll just go to the audition, see how it turns out. It probably won't work out. And then I got in to Kingston in London, and I just did it. There was never, I never wanted to become a professional dancer. I wish I did. I wish I'd had that passion and followed that through. But it was more just to go and experience it, really.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that you're just told to kind of do, and that you just rush into things. And
Yeah.
yeah, because my little sister just now, she is 19, 20 this year. And my mum was really worrying about her at like 18 because she went to college, didn't like it, she left, and then she went and done something else, didn't like it, she left. And I was like, that's a good thing. And I was like, Mum, I didn't like know what I was doing as a coach till I was like 26. Like that's like 7 years she's got to really discover. And my mum was like, oh my God, I forget that. She's like, I think because me and my brother moved away and Chloe didn't, I think she's like really worried about her that she's not going to find her way.
Yeah.
But now she's like loving life. She's got a course that she loved, and it was just through trying different stuff. And I think that's the way to do it, isn't it? Rather than like just stick to a course because you feel you should. She just kind of kept declining what just wasn't working for her. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, 100%. Like I was literally having a conversation with my dad earlier, and he was saying, I wish I'd asked you what you wanted to do or had that conversation with you more, because they forced me and my sister to go to uni because they never did. They never got any qualifications, and they wanted what was best for us, no matter what that looked like. They wanted us to have the degree. And it's only since obviously we've both become women that he literally was saying, I wish I'd just chatted to you more and found out a bit more about what you wanted to do, but they just didn't know any better.
Yeah. So like we partied hard, wasn't in great shape, then was stuck in like a crappy job, crappy relationship as well.
Yes, very, very.
Very crappy relationship. And like did you just start seeing that, was that relationship maybe starting to make you feel like you weren't good enough and starting to become a shell of yourself?
100%. It was strange because we were together like 3.5 years, and it definitely developed over time. And I started to see my self-worth through whether they were happy or whether I was making them happy and that kind of thing. Um, and there was a lot of kind of like emotional manipulation, gaslighting, that kind of thing. And obviously I had no idea what any of that was at the time. It's only since post therapy that I've worked all that out. Um, but yeah, I used to just be very submissive. Yes, whatever makes you happy, that's fine. It was kind of that robot thing of get through this, get through this. There was always that inner voice that was like, it won't be like this forever. But 90% of me was like, this is your life now. You need to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. And how did you get out of that relationship? If you don't mind me asking, like how did you finally well, firstly I want to say like I love hearing this because I feel like you're so confident and like you seem like so much you're not a shell of a woman anymore. And I think that's amazing. And it shows the groundwork that you've been doing over the years. That I can't imagine you being that way, nice and quiet and like not yourself. So like how did you lead yourself out of that relationship? If you're okay sharing that with us.
Yeah, yeah, open book me, I'll speak whatever. Especially because as well, like nobody expects it. And I just my motto in life is if I can help one person, job done. So, you know, hopefully one person can hear what potentially we've been through, or others, and know that there is another side. Because for me, there was a bit of a transitional phase. I knew it got to a point where I knew that this wasn't going to be the relationship that I was going to marry or stay with forever, because it started to get worse and worse, and it was almost getting like faster, and it was going towards more of the physical aspect. I could see that come in the future, and so we just started to have the conversation. I think I was just really brave one day. I'd probably had some wine and was like, I don't think this is for me. And then there was lots of, no, it's fine, it'll work. And he tried for a bit. And just as the more and more he tried, the more I was like, yeah, this isn't for me. But at the same time, that's when my mum was diagnosed with dementia. And I feel like I'll never know, but I sometimes think if she didn't go through that, would I have left that relationship? I don't know. I'd love to think that I would have, and my animal would have come out. But she got diagnosed, and there was a bit of all this stuff that was going on with him. I was thinking that is nothing that's so insignificant compared to what like my mum and dad are going through. So it started to pull me into reality, out of this bubble a little bit. And then so I kind of was like, no, I need to end the relationship. We had to live together for like 2-3 months while we kind of separated. But then I was like, I'm going to move home and be a carer and completely cut ties. And I think it sounds really awful to say, but it helped me come away from that relationship, I think.
Mhm. Yeah. So we kind of moved away from that relationship. And did you notice like little sparks for yourself starting to kind of, because sometimes like I think you leave a relationship and it's awful at the start, but I guess you had more worse things going on anyway that you can't even think about that. But breakups are really, really bad, especially like your first real breakup. It breaks your heart, and like always like they say the first cut is the deepest. But I remember my first breakup, I was distraught. But see, now looking back, I'm like, that was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Ever. But it's almost like you really lose yourself and you don't know who you are when you come out of a relationship. But I love when like our clients and stuff, like when they start getting that wee spark back and you can see it and they're like loving the single life, and it takes time for that to come. But do you remember any moments when you were like, I guess with everything you're going through, you maybe didn't feel as positive, but did you feel like there was any little spark that kind of came back or weight lifted when you left the relationship?
Yeah, there was a huge weight lifted. I came home early. It was all very dramatic. When it actually finished, I had to come home early. Um, it was weird. I feel like the way I described it to a therapist, I almost looked down on myself a lot, like I can float above and like see. And there was almost, I just kept saying to myself, you're gonna be all right. No matter what I felt, I almost just knew that there was gonna be another side of it.
Mm.
Um, so like you say, every day I would just plod on, even if I wasn't feeling great. I'd be like, just keep working towards the thing that's going to be all right. And there was definitely up and down days for sure, but I think from my mum's influence, I always knew I was going to be okay at the other side, and I think that's what definitely kept me going.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, where do you think you got that from? Because sometimes like it's really hard to think that way when you're in it.
Yeah, yeah, it's strong women, definitely my mum, my sister, um and just I just refused to let that be my story. I know that sounds cringe, but I just refused to go down that path. Um, allowed myself to sort of be depressed, angry, all those sorts of things. But again, just know that that's fine, but
Mhm.
do the next thing. It's going to be all right. I was probably stubborn and just said, I'm not going to be that person.
It's a great quality to have because, like you said earlier, like when you're a little girl, you are told to not be bossy and to not be loud and to not chat and to be quiet and to be patient and to like be nice. And it like when you're not that, you feel like there's something wrong with you. But they are such amazing qualities to have for running a business, for other aspects of life that we shouldn't heighten and quiet. So it's amazing skills that you have.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think I don't know where some of it comes from, but some of it is definitely strong women around me, which is what we want more of.
Absolutely, 100%. So how did we get into coaching? So we went back home, stayed with your mum and dad and like caring for your mum as well and helping your dad out?
Yeah, yeah. So I'd always been to the gym. Mum and dad took me to the gym when I was sort of 12, 13, introduced me to like fitness, that kind of thing. Um,
Wow, your mum and your dad?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So my mum was big on things like boxercise, Zumba, all the classes, loved it. She was at the gym 4 or 5 times a week. My dad was, they both ran together, you know, great enough runs, that kind of thing. They've always been into fitness. They met in the Navy, so that's where like the fitness stuff comes from. Dad played rugby, so I've always kind of dabbled. I was never sporty at school or anything like that. But the gym, I was almost like, well, this is easy because doesn't take that much effort to lift a weight up and put it back down. And my dad started taking me a bit more, train with him, read Men's Health magazine, that kind of thing. So people always knew, yeah, I was just bicep curling.
You and Joe always talks about his Men Health magazines were on his wall, not like pictures of girls. It was men with muscles on his wall doing bicep curls. That was you as well.
Yeah, my dad had a subscription, which I think my mum was always a bit like curious about. But yeah, he had a subscription and then he would just give them to me.
Isn't that is so different to me? Like my mum would do some like yoga classes and body balance and stuff, but my mum was such a binger and like very yo-yo with exercise. She still is to this day, and
Yeah.
she knows it. But to have people around you encouraging exercise and movement, I think that's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they definitely encouraged exercise and movement, and I think it really helped us, me and my sister, a lot. Nutrition wise, my mum was on every diet under the sun. So I watched her go through Weight Watchers, Slimming World, 1-to-1, keto, Cambridge. She was on the Kellogg's diet at one point. Like she has done them all. And I think that also has an influence on how I coach. Because I remember just thinking to myself, you've just gone to a meeting, weighed yourself, lost a pound, come home and had a Chinese and a big share bag of crisps. Like
Yeah,
something's not
I would
complete.
be in boots with my mum, and she'd literally be taking her jacket off, her shoes off, her socks off, her jumper off, and I'd just be standing there holding all her clothes, like, why are you doing this? And then whatever the scale said, kind of was like, woohoo, we're getting takeaway tonight, or woohoo, we're getting takeaway tonight. Even if it
Yeah.
went down or if it went up. But like, yeah, it's ridiculous watching that, isn't it? Carrying a holding all your clothes. And it wasn't like, as coaches, we know probably most likely to weigh yourself in the morning is maybe the best way to do it because so much changes through the day. She would be weighing herself at like 5 o'clock at night, different days of the week. And you just think like you were never going to get an accurate reading with how sporadic she was with it. But it's funny to look back on now, isn't it?
100%. I remember again thinking, you're going to a meeting at 6 p.m. She'd either not eaten all day and was about to pass out, or she'd been eating, and obviously the scales would be going up. So yeah, it really influenced my way. I'm a very sit back and observe kind of person. So yeah, and then
Totally
I
put you on back there.
no, the gym was I used to use it, and came home, and obviously with all this stuff going on, it was just my safe place at the time. I'd just go train an hour of quiet, and people started to ask me like, will you train me? And I was thinking, oh no, I'm not qualified, like it's just my fun. And then eventually got qualified as a gym instructor, pre and postnatal instructor, did some classes, and then it just developed from there really. And then because I was a carer, I realized I can't be at the gym 12 hours a day and look after mum. My dad was a main carer, but I obviously wanted to be there for them both. So I just started to think, well, how could I train people like online? So I'm training people, I'm helping people, I'm earning money, and I can be a carer. And then obviously like the 4-hour work week came out, James Smith started popping off, and then COVID hit. So that's when it kind of developed into this really.
Yeah, so you started building your business while you were still caring for your mum as well.
Yes.
Yeah, and how was that? Because I guess you kind of had good days and bad days with mum and business as well, the pressures of business. Like, what kind of kept you showing up and managing to stay positive with that?
So I think it kept me busy. It kept my mind busy. I think the significance of what my mum was going through, and because she was such a big character, we couldn't walk anywhere without her having 50 million conversations. She was a Scouse woman, like she was loud. And I, I remember just watching her obviously like decreasing basically, and thinking she wanted to get so much more out of life. So I was like, I need to create something that helps other people get more out of life. And again, I think it just gave me something to focus on, so that we couldn't really fully digest what was going on. Because if you really thought about it, obviously that would send anyone into a hole. So yeah, it kept me busy. It kept me fulfilled. And And on the bad days, it was just, again, it was nothing I could go through in business was as bad as what my mum was going through. And I think that really kept me going at that time.
Yeah. And how was your lifestyle around that time as well? Like, were you in great shape? Were you like nutrition good, or were you still kind of partying a little bit then? Or
So when I first moved home, I was definitely partying on the weekend, every weekend, Friday, Saturday nights. It was quite a lot for a while, which I did enjoy. It was spending time with my friends and stuff as well. But I was always hungover on the Sunday, and I cannot hack hangovers
you're
at all.
allergic to alcohol as well,
I,
which you told me.
I am allergic to alcohol,
So
which
like
is
when, yeah, and when people are allergic to alcohol, it's not just a hangover, it's actually way worse, isn't it?
oh, like I cannot tell you how horrible it is. Like I couldn't even sit up in bed. Like that's how bad it is for my mum was like, you need to be on a drip. Back in the day when I was younger, she was like, you technically should be on a drip right now. And I've been told that many times in the past, but I just couldn't physically get out of bed because it was that bad. And then the next maybe 2 days, you'd have maybe a normal hangover. Um, so yeah, that was really, really affecting my life. But then when COVID hit, obviously it was slightly different. By that point, I definitely learned that I was not going to be a drinker for my life. It just didn't suit me at all. Um, and then I was in really good shape in COVID actually. I only had a few weights, but again, I just really focused on making the most out of every lift that I could do. Um, so yeah, I was
Yeah,
in pretty good shape.
just sharing your little home workouts on the internet.
Yeah, I remember Joe telling me off for having my slippers on once.
So that's proper like relatable.
Yeah.
Got people that have got home gyms and they'll literally go in the gym with like a dressing gown on because it's so cold in the garage gym. And I'm
Oh,
like, yeah, I do that too. Even sat here speaking to you right now, I'm like covered in blankets as well.
are you cold?
Still get a little bit cold, but on camera it looks fine. But underneath, I'm like an old lady with all these blankets on the leg. But like I've heard you talk about before as well. Like I think this was after maybe your mum passed when you were almost like two paths of life. Like we could have went back to that old version of you. And I don't know if you want to share it rather than me sharing
Yeah,
it.
yeah, definitely. So, like you said, I'd already kind of figured out that I wasn't going to be a drinker and it didn't suit me, etc. And
Mhm.
then it must have been just after mum passed. I remember like going to the cupboard and I can't really live it now, but I must have been like in my head feeling some sort of way because I went to get a glass of wine and it must have been at about 11 a.m., like morning time. Um, and in my head, I don't think I was even thinking about it. I went to like open it and I had this like vision of two paths almost. And I said to myself, if you drink this now as a coping mechanism to get rid of whatever you're going through, that will be your coping mechanism. That will be your life. And you will never, ever really be able to create what you have potentially been put on this earth to do for other women. So I almost had this like, that's a raven vision. That's what it feels like in my mind. And I just didn't open it. I just put it back and I was like, right, we deal with this the hard way. Yeah, it's very strange. And it must have been such a significant moment because I can see it now in my brain.
Yeah, because like when you were doing the talk at Joe's event, I was like, oh my God, I relate to that so much because like, and some people listen and go, that's crazy. Like, how does that even happen? But you do just get to a certain stage where you're just like, I don't think like this is not right. And you can literally see, it's almost like you do see the two paths that you can go down where nothing changes or things actually get progressively worse. And if I think of the way I could have kept living my life, it scares me. Like, I wouldn't be the woman I am today without taking those hard decisions and changing who I was
Mm.
to be where I am now. It was hard, like you said, that's a hard route rather than that easy route of choosing things that would make you feel better short term.
Yeah. Do you remember like were you like going through stuff? Did you have a moment? Was there a few moments of like making that choice and seeing those paths?
Yeah, I feel like mine was more gradual, but I can still remember the moment just being like in my uni room, similar to you, like a really shitty relationship where like I felt I was rubbish and I was not good enough and I was not attractive. And I even remember him saying things like, oh, Like he would compliment other women's bums and then tell me I don't have a bum. And I was just like, oh. And I just remember being in my uni room and I was like, I don't want to feel like this anymore because I was drinking like 4 nights of the week, working in a pub. I was partying a lot. So very similar to you. But there was just that real moment when I was like, I just, yeah, I don't like this anymore. And I was like, that's me. I'm going to start exercising. And I went to a uni that was like known for fitness. I didn't really know that at the time. I was just going for the course, but Stirling Uni is known for like all the sports that it does. But I could never afford to do any of like the memberships for the gym, but then you also had to membership for sports membership, and then you had to pay to like for all your kit and stuff. I couldn't have that money. So I never did anything, not even a gym membership while I was at uni. And yeah, I just put my French dress on one day. It didn't fit. And I felt like I was getting bigger. I had that horrible relationship. I'd broken up with him and I was like, this is it. Like, I'm gonna start exercising. And I literally just started in fitness classes. And I remember the fitness teacher, she had like really nice toned arms and she was called Jenny. And Joe, we still bump into her now and again. And Joe always tells her, like, Leanne wouldn't be where she is today without you.
Love that.
She just had these amazing arms, and I was like, I want to look like Jenny. And I just went to this fitness class like twice a week, 3 times a week, and I felt amazing. And I was just like, then everything just spiraled from there, from that decision of like, I don't want to be like this anymore. I don't want to feel like this.
Mm.
That's how it kind of stemmed for me. But I know like there could have been those moments, and there still was those moments where I did have a lot of alcohol and I'd really suffer from it as well. And I'd regret my decision. So I still was drinking, but never as much from that day. I just made that call and I don't know where it came from. Literally came out of nowhere, but it probably was a combination of things.
Yeah, no, I agree. And for me, I don't believe in like extremes. I'll never be that person that's like, I'm sober, I'm done. Like I'll never sort of put myself in that box. There will probably be plenty of times in the future where I go too far, or, I still my drink is raspberry vodka. So I literally just will have raspberry vodka, soda all night, singles, maybe one shot if I'm feeling like cheeky. But I'll never say I'm completely sober because for me, that would open me up to so much failure. If I said like, oh, I'm sober, I'm done, and I had one drink, I've failed. So for me, it was more about just learning how to reduce it and almost like myself sober. That was one of my biggest reasons I drank, was to be confident, to fit in, to show that I was fun. Like people used to call me boring when I didn't have a drink, and I used to hate it. Whereas I almost forced myself to learn to embrace that and prove that I wasn't boring because I wasn't having a drink.
Yeah, I was exactly the same. Like I was not having fun unless I was drinking. And to be fair, like how else do you meet people or do things at that age unless you're going out and partying? And I didn't want to be home in the flat by myself, not doing anything. I was like, well, I want to go out and see people and do things and get drunk, and that brought on the confidence from there.
Mm.
But like I know there's probably people listening to this that are in positions where I was actually speaking to someone earlier actually, and we're just talking about like when you maybe are unhappy in work or unhappy with your lifestyle or just unhappy in some way. Like it's normal to feel not happy and to struggle. But I think there really does come times when it's like, right, this isn't serving me anymore. And it's like, I was wondering if you have any advice for people that maybe have been putting up with crap for a while or they're going through tough times. And it's like, what kind of little actions or steps can you take to like help you find that confidence again and help you move forward and feel good and find that inner animal?
Yeah. One of the best sayings I ever heard was, just because it has been doesn't mean it was. Because I found that a lot of people stay in, and including me, you stay in relationships because you've been in them for so long that you feel like you have to commit, or a job, you've been in it that long that you feel like you can't leave, and friends and things like that. But actually for me, it was almost testing the boundaries. Probably my inner child's a bit rebellious. And it's almost questioning the norms. If you feel caged, you almost have to start allowing yourself to be like, well, what if I just did this? A lot of people have fear, and I say to my clients, okay, what's the fear? What are you scared of? And they'll tell me, and I'll say, well, what if that happens? And they're like, I don't know. And because a lot of people, they'll think of the fear and then stop, whereas they don't think past the fear. And that's what I started to do. I started to question, what if I just had a sober night out. Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? Let me go and experience that and see, and it was almost just about experimenting. So like you say, if you're feeling really unconfident, really insecure, it's almost dipping your toe into an alter ego maybe, or practicing the what ifs. You've told yourself, oh, I can't do this because, what if they think this of me? Well, what if they think that? What happens if somebody in the gym has a thought about you? You'll never ever know.
Mhm.
You're almost doing yourself more harm coming up with all these things that could go wrong and not looking on the other side of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like what could go right? Like,
Yeah.
imagine like we literally thought about that with every situation. Like, what if all the good things happen? You would probably do way more things and take more risks if you thought that way and actually probably live a more fulfilling life because that's the thing, like when you are in a job that you hate or a relationship you hate, like you said, you can kind of keep going with it and you think, oh, it'll get better. And sometimes it does because everything goes through some hardship, but there does come this stage. And I was saying this to one of our clients, like she did hate her job and she would have that meeting and the meeting would make her feel better for like 1 or 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And at one point I said to her, I was like, you're only going to feel better for a couple of weeks after that conversation. Like, nothing's going to change. So like when that keeps happening, and I think you need to give it a couple of goes to be like, right, this is the third time. This is still crap. This is still shit. I don't enjoy it. My value is so much more. And there is people out there for like, I know so many amazing clients and women that are like awesome and they work so freaking hard. Like there is so many industries and businesses and people out there who know how awesome you are and would love to have you. And I think sometimes because you are pushing through that rejection or that shitness, like your confidence is dropping. And then you start thinking you're not good enough for other stuff, but you are. Like, you just need to go out and ask and have that conversation and try that new thing. And you'll probably be really happy that you did rather than just staying in the same place because it's comfortable and because it might get better, because it might not get better. And you're wasting all this time and your confidence on something that doesn't value you.
Yeah. I think like as soon as you have a thought of, is this my life or am I meant for more? As soon as you have that, you almost have to grab it. Because I find as women over the years, we've just put ourselves down so much through maybe what other people have said, through our own experiences. And for me, that's almost like tipping the seesaw lows. It's really heavy on the negative side. But you can literally have one positive thought and it will really kind of start to balance it out. And I always say to the girls, confidence isn't something you can accomplish. It's not something you can finish. It's not concrete. It's practice, and it's practice just balancing the negative. We can't get rid of that. We've spent at least 30 years convincing ourselves that we're probably not good enough and that we should be quiet and all this sort of stuff. So you're not overnight going to flip that seesaw the other way. Whereas if you just again start practicing, experimenting, trying, thinking of new ways, opening new doors over time, it just balances it out a little bit. And over time you might get to a point where it's balanced and we still feel the negative. We are both quite confident women, but we still have very insecure days, or that thought or feeling pops up instantly all the time. But we've just learned how to kind of mellow it out a little bit more. So that's something that I try and instill in other women is instead of thinking, how do I get rid of all these negative thoughts and be this confident person? It's more, how do I just start to balance it out because that's what I deserve.
Yeah, I think one thing that really, really worked for me as well, and like, I think this is just a really good baseline, is to like do the work on yourself as well. Like, I think sometimes, like, when work's rubbish or we're in a terrible relationship, we start neglecting ourselves and we stop doing the workouts and we stop eating well, and then that makes you feel worse. When I was in that really shitty relationship and like just really, really low and really unhappy and really low in confidence, like just going to that fitness class, like I didn't feel confident from like one session, but actually like going the next week and being able to lift a wee bit heavier, I was like, oh, I can do this, or oh, I am doing better. I don't know where that came from, but I just noticed that I was actually good at something. And that
Mm.
was just through like exercise. So like even though it wasn't like a grade or a profession or like something tangible, I don't know why, but just me getting fitter and healthier and stronger, I realized that that just totally complemented every other aspect of life. I was better at uni. My coursework was better, like my relationships with other people were better as well, like from me starting to do the work on myself and getting myself fitter, getting myself healthier, eating better, I could then grow confidence in these other aspects of life. I know that's not available to everyone, but I do think like even if it's not the gym, if it is a fitness class or even just walking or just starting with your food or alcohol,
Yeah.
because alcohol is great, but when we rely on it to make us feel better, it does make you feel worse and it makes you sleepy and it makes you more hungry and it makes you really low in self-esteem. That it's like start somewhere with you and your health. And I do think you will start growing confidence then, but you need to give yourself time. Like for me, this was over a 2-3 year period, like from that fitness class to running to then the gym to then becoming a coach. It didn't just 1-2 sessions and I'm like, whoa, I'm Leanne that I am today.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's definitely something that comes over time. And for me, it's like you say, it's forcing yourself to be in environments where the payout is going to be a good thing. Like when you're really low or feeling insecure, you almost go and prove that you deserve to be in this hole and in a dark place and all that. But you almost have to parent yourself and be like, just like you say, go outside. Everyone's saying how good it feels. You might not believe that it feels good, but just go and try it. And then as soon as you get outside and feel that fresh air, it's almost opening a new door of, like you say, you get a taste of that feeling. And then you're like, oh, I want a bit more of that. I want a bit more of that. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, definitely. Right, 2 seconds. But I do think it is like, you know how like it's always the simple basics: sleep, walking, daylight, good food,
Ridiculous.
movement. Like, and that's really boring and that's not sexy, but those are the things that genuinely are good for our physical and mental health. The basics.
Yeah, it really frustrates me when you see women getting pulled into the fads and the social media and the influence and all that, because for me the simple works every single time, and like I say, it's so boring and it's annoying and I get annoyed at myself every time, and I'm like, just go on a walk and you'll feel better, but it just it works.
Yeah, cool, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that all with us. And I want to kind of take the conversation a wee bit different before we finish up today, because you've gone through a little transition as well, where like obviously you've gone building your PT business, you've also lost your mum and bad relationships, so much change. And now we're like in this new era, this new chapter of turning 30. Have you finished celebrating yet? Because I knew you were celebrating for quite a while.
Do you know what? Considering I'm not a drinker and I'm not a social person, I celebrated for about 6 months without realizing it, but it's done.
And how did you feel turning 30 at first? Because I think this is genuinely a topic that is worth talking about, because like it is quite strange, this whole 20s to your 30s thing. And you're
Massive.
right at the start of it. So I just felt I'm gonna ask you. So how
Yeah,
did you feel before turning 30?
I I dreaded it. I'm not gonna lie. Well, I don't know if dread is the word. I felt this thing coming at me. There was this weird force that I could feel. This almost panic of. I remember I woke up in the middle of the night and I turned to Brad and I was like, "Brad, I'm never going to be in my 20s ever again." And he was just like, "Okay, go away." And I just like had this. I didn't know. I was trying to keep it calm. But everyone was telling me how amazing your 30s are and it just gets better. So I was never like panicked. I knew it was going to be all right, but I did feel this almighty thing coming at me. And then I turned 30 and I was like, oh, my joints are hurting, my hormones are changing. I feel like I definitely forced myself into believing that the world was going to end. But we're nearly November, December, January, February, March, nearly 6 months in now to being 30, and I think I'll be all right.
Yeah, yeah. It's weird. It's like just a birthday's a birthday. It's just a day of the week. Like nothing's going to change. You don't instantly age on that day, but it does feel like a big change. And I do think personally, my mindset changed a lot turning 30. And I spoke about this on this podcast before as well. Like never really ever worried about children or family and business and stuff. And then hit 30 and then I'm like, oh shit, like I'm not ready to have a family. Like as if like you turn 30, you need to do XYZ. It's strange. I don't know if you've had any of like even just a seed of that or more thoughts of that, or did you always think that way?
Yeah, no, it's again very, very strange for me. I never really thought about it especially when I got off the whole sort of society treadmill and started to create my own life, and I was like, do you know what? The world is my oyster. I can do what I want. Um, and then my sister has had children, and it again, maybe towards 30, I felt like my biology was telling me that I should. That's what it felt like, this almost instinct of that is what I should be doing. And then I had this other side of me that was like, but you've just got to the point where you're building a business, you're more confident than you've ever been, you can go on holidays, you know, me and Brad were in an amazing place. And I just thought, will it ruin it? Like, and it's constantly this push and pull. Like, I'll have an amazing day with my nieces and be like, oh, maybe I could. And then I'll see my sister one day, she's a zombie, she's got 2 kids hanging off her, and I think, oh, not for me. And again, it's something I talk to my therapist about, because it is definitely a push and pull thing. And I feel like I'm on this ticking time bomb, even though really I'm not.
Yeah. I do think like for me getting, because I just turned 35, and I feel like when I got to 33, I felt like it got more intense. I don't know if it's like when you're on Instagram, and maybe on Instagram as well for me, like there probably is a lot of people I've gone to school with or that I met at uni or whatever. And now I'm on social media and it's like children, children, children. And I'm just like, oh my God, like I just feel it quite intense. And also Instagram probably sends me stuff where I'm seeing people that don't have a family, people that do have a family, and just really kind of weighing up the cons. And now I've turned 35 again. I'm like, shit. But I just feel like I'm really just trying to chat to people that have been there, done it, or people that haven't, and just like opening the conversation up. And see, when I do, I feel like I really learn a lot. And I think like maybe before you would never really talk about those things, but
Yeah.
people are really open. And I remember speaking to someone at Joe's event actually, and she had her kids at like 38, and she's like, you'll be fine. You'll be all right. Like, don't worry. Just live right now. And I don't want to wish my years away, but I'm just like, oh my God. Now I'm feeling the monster of 40 coming closer with like 5 years to that. I'm like, oh, it's chasing me.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's strange. I just think like you do just start thinking about these things, but I think you need to in a way as well. Like can't
Yeah.
ignore it and pretend it's not going to happen.
That's it. Again, it's, I feel, I don't know if it's because we're women, because we think differently, because we're high achievers, or we want more out of life. You almost want to be able to, one, be in control of everything that's going to happen, and two, tick all the boxes. Like, I want to be able to have that life and that life and that life and have everything. Um, and I suppose we can. I think for us, it's more about maybe letting go of the control a little bit, or letting go of the ideal plan. And like I say, having more conversations like this with women, and creating our own path. Like, I've got friends who've got kids, I've got friends who won't have kids. Um, and yeah, it's just, I guess it's nice that you're starting having this space of, I think more and more women are talking about just grabbing life by the balls. And I actually heard a podcast the other day that said, for the first time ever, I think it's more men who want babies than women in like our age group. And I think that's a sign of the times.
Yeah, it's wild, isn't it? But like, how do you feel like with kind of business as well? Like turning 30, do you feel like you want it to be in a different position? Do you feel more clearer on who you are? Like I felt turning 30 as well. I was like, yeah, this is who I am. Like I felt like I just knew myself so much more than I did in my 20s. I don't know if you felt anything like that as well.
Yes and no. I feel more of a woman than ever before, if that makes sense. Like, less of a girl, more of a woman. But there's also another side of me that is almost like, again, I feel like I'm on the beginning of a new chapter. That's what I feel like. I feel like I'm in this transitional phase again. Like you said, I don't know if I want kids or not. So almost need things to happen now. I want to be exploring, and not let myself kind of settle. So I feel like I know myself more than ever in terms of what I've been through, and who I am, but I'm also very much at the point of, I'm about to explore what's going to happen next. And there's probably a path laid out for me in terms of what I should be doing, quote unquote, like babies, business, that kind of thing. But I know that I'm probably now about to face the whole rebel against that if I want to, or find my own bits of it. I feel definitely on the cusp of something as well.
Yeah, it is. It's just a very strange time. And I think you don't think about it before, but as soon as you hit that 30 mark, it does just come more into the equation for that, just the body clock as well. And I think being a business owner, you do need to think differently as well. Because again, with what we do, we can't just take 9 months or 6 months off work. you know? And I see a lot of women that go straight back into it after like a week after having a kid. And I'm like, that is wild. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, more and more. I'm seeing that more and more, like coaches and the online space. It's you have a baby and then you're pretty much back to it. And obviously, ideally, we'd all like to get to a place where we can have that time away and delegate and still grow the business. But I think also we are in this because we are so passionate about helping people. Whether you have a baby or not, we can still help one person a day.
Yeah, cool, amazing. So I think we'll finish up from here. We've talked about so much today. I've got one wee question that I just kind of asked towards the end of the podcast for everybody. So the question is, who's a woman that really kind of, I probably know part of this, but you can name a couple that inspired you really growing up to become the woman that you are today.
So you've obviously got the family side. My mum and my sister are huge inspirations for me. My sister is probably the strongest woman I've ever met in my whole entire life. She obviously has two children, two nieces.
Is she an older sister? I was going to ask that earlier when she said she's got kids.
Yes, she is 35 this year, I think, similar age. She's got two beautiful babies, but she was pregnant whilst we were losing mum, and it was all very connected. And I think, I knew how I felt, but to see how she felt going through that, it was just a whole other thing. But even growing up, she really, really looked after me. She held her own a lot. So she was amazing. Obviously, my mum. In terms of business and that kind of thing, there's the lady who owns Ann Summers was Jacqueline Gold. She actually passed away recently, but I loved what she did in terms of the business side of things, who she was, what she created, how she took over from her father, what she did for women. And I remember I used to go for sales jobs and they would ask me that question, who inspires you? And I would say Jacqueline Gold, and no man would know who she was, but there'd be a few women that would be like, oh, I know who that was. And people would laugh at me in interviews because I'd bring up Ann Summers. But yeah, she definitely inspired me quite a lot to talk about taboo subjects. I'm a very open book. We talk a lot about sex and all sorts of stuff with me. Like, I love it. I love making people feel uncomfortable because it will help
I
to
should change the questions for today's podcast. I should
yeah.
have done some like we should have done like a sexy podcast
Yeah.
episode. Like ask Georgia
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, maybe that could be part two. I'll just bring the book. You can talk about whatever. But I love it because I think women should speak about anything. My mum was the same. There was nothing off the cards. So yeah, very, very inspirational women.
Did you find out about her when you were working at Ann Summers? Is that how you kind of were like, oh, like, did you know about what she had done before you worked there? Or was it when you
No,
were...
no. It was when I started working in Ann Summers, you had to learn a lot about the business actually. It was quite good. It's different to any other retail that I knew about. And it was very much she wanted the staff to be happy and that kind of thing. So, and I started to read more about her story and obviously on Instagram. And it really gave me the inspiration of women in business because I'd only ever seen men at the top. And it almost again opened a door that it was possible and you could go after it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I can't believe you worked at Ann Summers. That's amazing.
Honestly, best job ever. Loved it.
Okay, amazing. And where can we find more from GMC? Where would we find you and everything that you're doing in the world right now?
So mainly on Instagram, I live on there, unfortunately. GMC Fitness _Georgia is my handle. Other than that, I'm on TikTok, which is Georgia Cardle Fit, but that's more just for fun and comedy than anything. But mainly Instagram, that's probably where you're best finding me.
Do you actually use TikTok? I can't use it at all. I forget about it.
Yeah, I more for fun because Instagram is obviously now for business for me. I have, that kind of side of things. I just got TikTok for the fun stuff. I have to pull myself off it because I will fall into a doom scroll and I hate it. But if I just want a bit of, a little bit of fun, then yeah, bit of comedy.
Right. And if anyone has any sexy questions, then you can any dildo questions, underwear questions.
I feel like I'm open to kind of worms.
No, you're happy for anyone to message you if you've got any questions today, because I know you've talked about a lot of really kind of personal stuff, and we really appreciate that. But I just love bringing people on here because I think again we're kind of put on a platform on social media, and you think we have it all worked out and we've just woke up as these fit, confident women, but we're not them all the time. We still have struggles, but
Yeah,
also that we have done a lot of work to get there and a lot of hard work to get there. It's not been easy.
yeah.
And I think you really sharing this personal story is super fucking inspiring, and how positive and lovely and amazing you are with everything you've been through. It makes me feel emotional saying that to you, but I just think you're absolutely awesome. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
Thank you for holding the space, and like you said, I think we're in this because we're so passionate about helping people, and you are inspirational to me. You're lovely, you're kind, and I love it. And I think if people want to message us, they should, because we have been that girl, and we are so happy to help other people, and we're in it for the right reasons. So hopefully people can feel that.
Do you know what as well, before we finish? I always think as well, we did it by ourselves. Like, see if I had a Georgia when I was younger, like, oh my God, like I would be like firing, I would be loving it, but nothing like that existed. And it's almost like people don't need to go through that 10 year of graft and work. It's literally like you could get there so much quicker and less pain than, than we did
Yeah.
from having like help like that. So I think it's amazing the way the world is now to,
I started my Instagram for younger me. I used to just talk on stories to younger me because I needed to see more of that. And that's where it all started.
yeah. Yeah, it's cool. Right, cool. Thank you everybody for listening. I'll leave Georgia's details in the description as well if you want to go and check her out and give her a follow, give her some love for her amazing story that she shared today. Thank you so much. I hope you all have an amazing week, and I'll speak to you all soon.